Pulp finds writer Max Winter wanting to talk about the time he almost died a third time, but it's complicated with lots of beginnings, since that's what life is, a bunch of beginnings piled together. In the Old West, the Red River Kid faces down Ace McCoy in a duel, drawing his gun smoothly and killing McCoy. Red hears the train coming into town, no doubt with Pinkertons aboard, agents of the law hunting him and his partner Heck Randall. Both men saddle up and ride south towards the border of Mexico, where Red finds himself lucky to be alive, having come close to dying once more, yet he keeps on living. Riding into Mexico, Red and Heck hope to find a new life, but what they found was a life with even more gunfights, and that's a life that you can only do for so long before it catches up to you. Red knows that if he played the right hand, found a wife and raised some cattle, he could leave this life and grow old. Max's editor finishes the passage of his new story, finding it good, but the ending needs fixing, since their readers don't care for Mexico, and Red and Heck sound like they are ready to retire at the end. Max knows that that's not the case, wanting to write stories about their later years and show the tapestry of their lives, not just shoot 'em up stories. The editor reminds him that he's writing for a pulp mag called Six Gun Western, and shoot-ups is what readers want. Max wants to try something different, but Howard tells him to stick to formula, since shooting bad guys and riding off into the next adventure pays the bills. Howard pulls his money from the drawer, intending on paying Max 2 cents a word, equaling to $120, but Max knows that's not enough. Howard says that that's how it is since print circulation is down and there's loads of competition now. The editor knows that Max is lucky to be getting that amount at his age, so maybe he should look on the bright side. Heading out into the New York City night, Max knows that he never has been good at listening to people giving him hard truths like Howard, and the longer he lived, the more those people seem to just crop up. He knows he's at the age where everyone seems to ignore him or treats him like a hassle, but he thinks of himself as a younger man. He knows this is how he almost died a third time, as he sees 2 men picking on a young Jewish man. Max steps in, telling the men to leave the kid alone, but the men beat him, and during the beating, Max has a heart attack. As he lay there in pain, the men find his hard-earned money, taking it and leaving as everyone on the subway platform watches on. Max soon blacks out, thinking if he survives this, he's going to be really pissed off about the money. Max remembers the first time he almost died when he was only 20 years old, and how he and his brother got caught in the middle of a range war between 2 cattle barons, who sent men to burn them out of their homestead for their land. But when the men escaped, the cattle barons opened fire on them, killing his brother instantly, as Red takes a bullet as well. Red's friend Spike, whom he refers to as Heck in his stories, was sure the gunslinger would have died from the wound, but he survived the trip to the doctor, and after a week in bed, Red got back to work, only he never truly felt the same. A month later, Red and Heck found the men who killed his brother, gunning them down viciously. Max goes to see a doctor, given medicine for his heart and told to cut out his drinking and smoking, but the doctor knows that thanks to all his scars, he might be already on borrowed time. Released from hospital, Max hits the cold streets, and for the first time he begins feeling his age. Thanks to the heart attack, he begins feeling every heartbeat and the pounding in his ears of the bustling city. He knows on the train platform he wasn't scared, but now the fear is gripping him tight, and it's an unexpected feeling, since he thought he would have welcomed death, but now he's not so sure. Heading back home, Max is welcomed in by Rosa, whom he doesn't tell about his heart attack, only that he got mugged and his money was stolen. He reassures her that he will try and talk with his editor to get some more stories to write. Rosa knows that means he will pull an all-nighter, and that takes so much out of the old man. Max knows that they need the money, but Rosa tells him that they don't need it that badly. Heading into his office, Max knows that he was thinking of their survival, but he knows he never looked further than next month's rent. He knows Rosa was different to him, always dreaming of living in a little home in Queens and being visited by her grandchildren. Max soon gets to work, remembering how Rosa had pulled him out of a decade-long drunken stupor, reminding him of his wife and daughter when they would speak Spanish together. He knows that he owes his life and current situation to Rosa since she gave back the life he lost. The next day, Max is shocked to find that Howard has hired a younger writer to begin penning Red River Kid stories, revealing the writer is his nephew, whom he barely has to pay. Max says that Red is his character, but thanks to a clause in his payment vouchers, the company actually owns the rights to the character, and with his health, they need to protect their investment. The shock causes Max to feel ill, making everyone around him go dull. Max heads home, knowing this will be the last time he gets in a taxi, feeling feeling defeated after what has happened. Getting home, he finds that he only has $45 to his name as Rosa suggests that maybe they go out. Max agrees, so they head to the theatre, watching newsreels of Hitler's war machine marching into Czechoslovakia. He sees men cheering on Hitler as Rosa says the Nazis are now in New York, marching in Times Square. Getting up, Max heads to the bathroom, washing his face and praying to God he doesn't have a heart attack right now. Leaving, he sees a security guard is given the theatre's earnings for the night. The guard leaves the bank with it as Max's mind begins working, but the attendant brings his mind back to reality. He remembers back when him and Spike became wanted men, he had $32 to their names, which lasted them a month until Spike suggested they rob stagecoaches. The two gunslingers rob a coach carrying the payroll bags belonging to men like the land barons who killed his brother, so Max was more than happy to relieve them of it. From there, the two begin robbing trains, enjoying playing bandits and being charming rogues. Because of this, Max finally thought he found his callings, a calling he continues to follow as he watches the guard from the theatre load up his wagon. Thinking about a robbery makes Max stop worrying about his heart, instead listening to it pound. He follows the truck through the neighborhood, seeing it stop on its way and learning its routine. Over the next 4 days, he comes up with a plan to rob the coach, retrieving his old 6-shooter and holster, knowing it will be his only partner this time. The next day, he gets ready to enact his robbery, but suddenly he is stopped by a man who knows exactly what he's about to do, telling him he'll be gunned down as soon as he steps off the curb. The man seemingly knows exactly who Max is, offering to buy him a drink. Heading into a bar, Max learns the man is Jeremiah Goldman, who reveals an old wanted poster of Max when he was called Red. Max discovers that decades ago, Jeremiah was a Pinkerton and he came across some old stories and recognized the tales. Jeremiah says that he was going to see the man at home, but he saw what he was about to do and was surprised that he would try a robbery in broad daylight. Goldman reminds him that it's not 1895 anymore and he can't just leave town after a robbery, especially a town like New York. Max says that he will try and remember that, wondering what else the man wants. Jeremiah says funnily enough, he was actually hoping to convince Max to help him pull a robbery, but they will be robbing someone who actually deserves it and it will be easy. Max reminds the man that he's a lawman, but Jeremiah knows that to do the right thing, sometimes you have to break the law. Max asks who they are stealing from, learning that it's the Nazis. Later, Max learns that they will be targeting the Nazi Bund, who are having a rally in Madison Square Garden, and a counter-protest was planned, and Jeremiah's plan was well thought out since someone in his building is part of the Bund. And because of this, the man learned that by following the Nazi every week, he loads crates into a ship bound for Germany, crates full of cash. Max wonders why he doesn't just get his Pinkertons or T-men, but Jeremiah knows that they don't give a shit about anyone anymore, and Max is the only one listening to him. After agreeing, he spends the night awake, his mind drifting back to the people he's loved, feeling the heartbreaks open once again. Max remembers the days with Spike and the gang and how he thought Spike would get through all this just before falling asleep. He wishes he could visit his grave just one more time, but he knows he's never going back to Mexico. The next night, Max and Jeremiah stake out the shop the Nazis operate out of, intending on robbing it while most of the members are at the rally. Jeremiah knows that Monday is when they will hit it, since that's when most of the cash will be in the building. He doesn't know how much it will be, however, and the next day, Max feels really strange to be working with the enemy. However, it somehow feels like he's working with an old friend. He asks if Jeremiah ever caught up with him back in the day, but the man never did, coming close one time in Denver though, close enough to shoot one of the gang members. Max remembers that like it was yesterday, saying that he shot Lanny Barkin, and he remembers that it was one heck of a shot. Jeremiah apologizes for killing the man, but Max says that he hated Lanny since he was always looking for someone to shoot, and he had to stop him from raping a woman one time. Max never understood why men just want to hurt people, and Jeremiah knows now there's whole countries that want to do that. Max knows that not everyone in Germany is a Nazi, just the powerful people who have mobs around them, like the enforcers the cattle barons used. He knows that they never cared who they hurt or burned and were being paid to take orders, but that was all an excuse to do what they want. Jeremiah calls him a bleak son of a bitch, always hearing he was the charming one of the gang, but Max knows compared to Lani, everyone was charming in that gang. Jeremiah and Max head back to Jeremiah's apartment, where they meet Franny, the black-eyed young girl who is related to the Nazi sympathizer in the building. The men head upstairs, getting their weapons ready and talk about their lives since the Wild West, but But Max never tells Jeremiah about his own family, knowing that he would never be able to talk to someone about his daughter. On the night of the robbery, the two men head to the alley, 20 minutes after the Nazi rally begun. Max goes in first, confronting the smoking man in the alley, holding him up. The man calls Max's bluff, going for his gun, but Jeremiah reveals himself, shooting the man with his shotgun and cold cocking him unconscious. Max is shocked at the violence as Jeremiah shoots his way into the back room of the store, holding up the two Nazis inside. Max knows that Jeremiah isn't following the plan as he is pointed to a safe, which is revealed to be full of files the ex-Pinkerton wants. Max asks the men where the money is, but the men aren't transporting money. Opening a crate, Max sees they are nothing but anti-Semitic leaflets. The men have no idea about any money going to Germany, making Max wonder why he even thought it was a great idea to trust Pinkerton. Jeremiah gets the files he wants as suddenly Max feels a heart attack coming on. The man from outside rushes in, opening fire and causing the men to race to their car, with Max pushing through the heart attack. Getting behind the wheel of the car, Max races through the streets of New York as Jeremiah shoots the pursuers, causing them to crash as Max's heart attack reaches its tipping point, causing him to black out. Max remembers his time in the West, finding escape in Mexico where he worked the fields and raised a child. However, he knew his partner Spike never could settle down, and he eventually drank himself to death in 1915, a few years before influenza took everything from Max, making that the second time Max almost died. Later, Max awakens in hospital with Jeremiah, whom he immediately questions about the money. The Pinkerton says that there is money, it's just being transferred by international banks, but the office they robbed was where the accounting is done from, and who donated them will be shown on the list that he stole, a list full of very prominent people who were secretly Nazis. Max says that he could have just told him. Jeremiah, a Jewish man, says Max could never understand it all. He reveals that he lost his job because Henry Ford didn't want a Jewish man working for him, and now it's happening all over Germany, but the hate is also in New York as well, so he admits to using Max to get the evil monsters. He knows they need to be exposed, but Max knows the ledger won't make a difference as Jeremiah gives him a folder which contains a deed to a house in Queens as well as $8,000. Jeremiah knows that it's not a box of cash, but at least it means he didn't almost die for nothing. After Jeremiah leaves, Max is given the bad news by the doctor that he has weeks or even days left to live. Max barely listens, looking at the deed, and knows he now actually has a way out of his trap. Done being a fool, he puts all his assets in Rosa's name, feeling for the first time in so long that he finally has earned what he has been given. He thinks about Jeremiah Goldman, knowing he doesn't hold a grudge against the man, realizing the man actually believed in justice and he never heard someone get so angry about the world like Jeremiah was. Weeks after getting out of the hospital, Max finds a story in the paper about Jeremiah causing a Nazi banker to resign in disgrace. He goes over to see the man to congratulate him, only to find Jeremiah has been killed, apparently having fallen down the stairs, breaking his neck. Max knows that story is a load of bullshit, going inside and meeting with Franny and learning that it was her brother who killed him after Jeremiah tried to stop him from hitting her. Franny says that she is so sorry for getting the man killed as Max asks what her brother's name is, promising not to tell the police, only wanting his name. Going into Jeremiah's apartment, Max finds his shotgun as well as maps with locations where Franny's brother hung out with his Nazi friends. Loading the gun, Max heads to the club, telling the bouncer he is there to meet Arnie Weber. Going inside, he finds Arnie by the bar, getting the man to confirm he is indeed the man he's looking for. Max blows Arnie's head off, calling himself a friend of Jeremiah Goldman. While killing the man, Max finally knows the truth, that they weren't heroes, they were killers. Using his 6-shooter, he begins gunning down the Nazi scum, knowing that he survived so long because the world belongs to monsters, and Jeremiah knew it shouldn't be like that. Max Winter is soon gunned down in the club, having killed dozens of Nazis and finishing his story, telling us the reader that that's how it all happened. Pulp was an utterly fantastic tale from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, blending the grandness of the Old West with the unsureness of World War II era America. I thoroughly enjoyed watching Max's story unfold and loved the trip into his mind of a broken man who miraculously survived, so much so that the world he thrived in died before he did, causing him to kind of fall and wander aimlessly in a new world that is progressing quicker than he can catch up to it. Brubaker does an amazing job characterizing Max, Max, so much so that when you first meet him, you instantly care for him, and I enjoyed how it doesn't fall into the trap that many Wild West books do, in which the cowboy protagonist is called a killer and a bandit and whatnot, but he never really does anything bad and is at times more of a hero. Max knows he's a bad guy and he's accepted that, while he's also trying to make something of his former life and try and use that for good some way. The entire creative team here delivered an epic revenge story that gets really creative with its setup and keeps you guessing on what is really going to happen. I cannot recommend this book enough. I am going to give Pulp a 10 out of 10.